Jazz Cabbage Cafe, myself, Rick Thompson, Deborah Young to start it off. We'll have a lot of other people through here. We're going to recognize our awesome sponsors, and including, of course, 420 Promotions that hasn't officially made it on this list, but it is officially hooking us up pretty well, and we're glad to be working in sponsorship with them. And we'll mention them again maybe after, but here are the sponsors that we do have ready to go.
Jazz Cabbage Cafe is sponsored by The Botanical Company, Redemption Cannabis, Real Leaf Solutions, Detroit Nutrient Company, and GrowGreenMI.com.
And 420 Promotions.
And 420 Promotions.
Here's Mr. Hash Bash.
Hey now.
Coming on early on in the show, not exactly at the beginning, but good enough. There'll be a few people in it.
Adam's pipe there, from what I can see, sort of looks like a trichome or perhaps a mushroom head there. It was originally
a little phallic. Yeah.
The chronic tempered bomb. But I broke out the phallic just
nice.
No judgment, you know.
It's fine, just what it looks like.
Yeah.
Common occurrence over there. There you go. Yeah. It all works. So last week, we essentially focused on pre-rally discussion and pre-Entheofest, and also the discussion of what the bills we believe were going to look like, at least some headline information on what the bills were going to look like. This week, we have the actual bills to discuss. We have a post-rally, post-Entheofest discussions to be had, and it's also expungement week. So at some point, I think Josey's going to join us and flip out some stuff about Great Lakes Expungement Network and some of that activity, and talk about expungement week and what's been going on and that type of stuff. Did you see Shipment? And
I'm assuming it means Skymint.
I think that's what it means, and I don't know what it applies to. They've been involved in a few different things recently, one of which they were scheduled to be part of this licensed cannabis event in Niles on the 25th, coming up this Saturday. And by the way, if anybody wants a ticket to go to that, they are free. I can arrange one. And I'll be there with Glenn, helping to get people parked and collecting the parking fee, in which a portion of will go to our organization to help get people expunged. And so if anybody's interested in that, let me know. When Josey comes on, she can get a little more into expungement week and what the latest is.
But the Skymint tie-in is that Skymint was originally slated to be a primary sponsor of the event. When it was revealed online, social media sort of blew up, reminding the event promoters that Skymint was one of the banned, boycotted companies. And again, pressure from the consumer world seems to have worked. It's like the Niles Festival has dropped Skymint as one of their festival sponsors and might be pursuing Jamie Rare Cannabis as a replacement.
That's been said. And then Dabs here is pointing out that Skymint's in the process of acquiring other companies, one of which is 315, which is a company that's also going to be at that event. So that acquisition hasn't totally been completed yet, but that is true, that Skymint is buying out 315, I believe some other things as well, but 315 for sure. Dabs is bringing that to our attention. Last night on the Bros Grow show, Sunday night on Bros Grow show, discussed the bill pretty extensively. All those guys from that show were at the rally. They're very knowledgeable about this stuff. That show's got a few different time slots, and also they've got a few spin-off shows that are really cool too, like ones on harm reduction specifically. Just a group of really knowledgeable, aware people who pay attention and are involved in this stuff. And they put on a really good show. It sounds good. It looks good. Intro's very professional. So definitely check that out. Last night on Medical Mondays, we talked about this, of course. And there's a guy from the west side of the state on there who had put out an online petition, and it said a lot of the same stuff, a lot of the same things that we would be concerned about with these bills coming up. And but the one thing that kind of stuck out a little bit to me is that in response to this, he is forming another caregiver organization. So I want to say there's like 3 or 4 that I know of that have just been created in response to this threat.
If they were trying to stuff the caregivers out of the system, they've accomplished exactly the opposite. All they've done is rally the people. Let's face it, a slumbering giant, because since legalization, caregivers and many of the patient community haven't been involved in a lot of public politics. But now, as a result of this, the troops are getting geared back up. All of the old muskets are getting oiled, and the jackets are being worn. Where our troops are headed to the field again. Thanks, MCMA, assholes.
Yep.
Well, I will point out that the biggest problem we have, in my opinion, is not the MCMA and not their bills, but the misinformation and the lack of knowledge amongst our troops. If you go through social media and you read the posts and then you read the comments, it's fascinating how many people have not read anything, how many people believe that the law has been passed and that caregivers are out come 2022. People that think that a great offer has been made to us, that we should accept this opportunity for caregivers to get into the market and that this is a good thing. Well, that just tells me that they haven't read anything more than that one paragraph.
Right.
And to point out, Jamie mentioned that there's possibly 4 groups. If they all had the same mission statement, that's a waste of opportunity right there.
But I think a lot of them are coming at it from a slightly different angle. There's many different ways of going about being in opposition.
Yep.
Of this, and so we'll have to see how that plays out. But right, if groups are doing the exact same thing, there might be something to be said for joining forces formally. And I mean, even for example, Michigan Normal and Michigan ASA are 2 different organizations. Both care about consumers. Michigan ASA, very specific patient focus. There's lots of room to work together on a lot of issues, especially this one right here.
Correct.
And we will.
Correct. And I actually just had that argument last night in a phone call with Jared. Actually, Rick, we ended up on a call last night on the old link, but that's another story. My argument is this: for Michigan Normal and Michigan Michigan ASA to work together, while we may have extra firepower, we are now one battlefront. My argument would be we need 2 battlefronts. We should be working independent of each other, and we should be hitting them over and over and over and over.
Yeah.
So, for instance, to do what do we used to call those things where we went to the Capitol? I forgot.
Jazz hands.
No. There you go.
Exactly.
To do a lobby day. But my point is to do a lobby day as a group, both entities, means we have one lobby day. If each group did their own lobby day, we'd then have 2 lobby days. And it would look like you have 2 different organizations, both with a common goal coming at you. So I happen to think that while it's good to have all these organizations and all these groups on board, that we need to work a concerted effort, but separately. And
that is kind of going on. I know the Cannabis Caucus has already begun engaging the House Democrats. Will continue to do that. Michigan Normal certainly could do that. ASA could do that. Each one. I know that BRICO's Michigan Caregivers Association we talked to on here is very aware of what's going on and is actively doing some things. What exactly? I mean, I don't know, but they are definitely fired up about this and are going to be responding. So I think some of that is going on, but I also agree with you that if that individual efforts could be more concerted at the same time and really reinforce each other, that could mean something. And we're definitely going to the concept of discussing the rally and its importance and how all that went. There's some specifics there, but this is directly related to that, and this is why we were at the Capitol.
Well, if you look at caregivers are threatened in a number of different ways. There's municipal law, which threatens caregivers, and then there's statewide law, which threatens caregivers. And if you look at regular adult users of cannabis, they're threatened too. There are just so many different.
And what is consistent is that's these big money interests that are driving both of those efforts.
Yep.
The restriction on the local effort, and of course these bills that would be an unnecessary new statewide approach. And there's still the issue too of people making a distinction between businesses and caregivers, and it's not like that. It is the small group of the huge investors. It's the MCMA against everybody else. There were plenty of licensed people there in support of caregivers on Wednesday.
And let's be real, caregivers are their Trojan horse. This has nothing to do with 30,000 caregivers or 70,000 patients. This has to do with the black market and the illicit market that will not go away and has only strengthened over the last 80 years, 40 of which have had a civil war declared against it.
There's 40 of which.
I mean, you can pretty clearly see where once you start corrupting caregiver privileges and patient privileges, the next step is to corrupt all adult use privileges in the hopes that by eliminating home grow, you'll drive people and their dollars into the regulated marketplace. But here's what I know as an unregulated market user. If you fuck with me, I'll never come in your store. I'll hate you for the rest of the time that you're there. And I'll find all the different ways you rename your company or all the different places that your CEO goes to work after he leaves that company. If you take my caregiver from me, that's a lifetime stain on your reputation. And I will never, never give you anything. And most caregivers are passionate just like I described.
Well, I'm going to offer a different view just because I work at a caregiver farm. And another thing to consider is if you work at a caregiver farm, a lot of times you're just farming. You're not even thinking about these laws. That's why they're sneaky. Because I posted something, the other day, and I went into work at the farm, and they found out about it from my post, right? Because farmers are farming. They're not sitting around waiting for the law to change. And some farms have somebody that is keeping track of that kind of stuff, but some don't. Some are just like, oh, we're good. We already went through that battle. So I think a lot of them don't know. A lot of people do not know that this is going on. They're assuming everything's okay. Even farmers.
The big corporations have people that can monitor the politics of the day, but the average people who are just trying to make bills and trying to stay solvent, right? They don't have a lot of money to be able to have someone specifically to monitor things. It's one of the advantages of a trade association is that for a membership fee, you can, thanks, John, for a membership fee, you can get the advantage of having someone keep an eye on these type of things for you. And the MICIA is a great organization to join, but
that's another thing.
A lot of people don't. They don't know.
There are people who still want to insist that the MICIA and MCMA are closer in philosophical approach than we happen to know to be the case. I tried to explain it last night that the MICIA is pro-industry, yet they were getting criticized for not actually working on behalf of the caregivers. I mean, that's not what the organization's function is. But they don't oppose caregivers. They're not doing what the MCMA is doing. And the fact that they're not gives us a chance to stop it. If they were in cahoots with the MCMA saying, let's make it over, we probably have a very difficult chance of being able to stop this at all.
There is no larger trade organization than the MCM or the MICIA.
Right, about 300 members to
300 plus
10 or 12 that's in the other one.
Right, and that's what makes them and Robin specifically so powerful is, they have that in numbers. Now, they may not have the money that other organizations put up, but hiring high-priced lobbyists doesn't seem to necessarily work out in on your behalf. It may get you down the road a little bit, but so far, Mr. Linder hasn't been too. He hasn't delivered, if you ask me.
This is a real threat, though, and we're going to get more into that in a minute. John Roberts is making this statement, but John, I want to make it clear that this isn't new legislation. This is amending the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, and that would be the law. And that's a big problem with this.
Yep. Also, it's difficult to prove Americans with Disabilities Act applies to the cannabis industry, specifically because Americans with Disabilities Act is a federal law, and under federal law, all cannabis use is illegal. So you're trying to apply a federal law in a case where only state law applies. But the concept there, and there's a coordinating law in the state that protects disabled people. The concept is completely sound. Our people are using cannabis medicinally, not criminally. So why are we not utilizing the laws that protect medical patients instead of trying to use the laws that punish criminals?
Well, because we're the bastard stepchild of everything.
We are. The
blame. I've dropped it, but the reality is you're never going to tax my medicine, and I refuse to pay any tax to the government that's treated me the way they have when it comes to marijuana. So, I see taxation as a real problem in this game. If we were talking about a regulated system that didn't include taxation, the argument would be very different. Because it does include taxation, I believe we should be entitled to certain benefits, and it's the exact opposite. They didn't call it a sin tax because I don't believe they could convince enough people that there was actually true sin involved, but it's the same concept.
Sin taxes are traditionally identified with tobacco and alcohol use, and occasionally gambling, casinos,
and gasoline.
And if you remember when the taxation started, they were trying to tell us that these taxes would be spread around and used for all kinds of things, some of which went against what we stand for. Law enforcement, they don't need our money.
Yeah, I dig this. Kirk is saying, and Kirk's going to join us in a little while and talk about the rally. We don't really have to know much more other than no existing rights ought to be taken away, and a small group of huge money participants ought not control the cannabis activity in Michigan. If we remember that, it makes it easy to know what side you're on. And that's other licensed commercial cannabis businesses all the way through to the average citizen that just has a philosophical belief on this. Don't take people's rights away.
But we have a hashtag. I'm sorry, Adam, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm still fascinated by some of the things I read where I'm watching caregivers talk about how great this is because they'll be able to get into the regulated system. And
that's how it's talked about, and you're right. But if you're listening to the headlines by some people, you're not.
And worse than that, they're talking about how this is about safety because of untested product. And the reality is that up until about 20 years ago, when cannabis started being tested by machine, prior to that, it was tested by humans and only by humans. And we've never had a failed test. I mean, not a recall, at least.
But Adam, do you know any of these so-called caregivers who are saying that they think this could it be these are just
for sure
for the opposite
they're
side?
talking about testing.
Yeah, I can't even believe that as far as a caregiver goes. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it, but are those real people or are those
There's a handful of people that might benefit from this, and I can see those specific people showing up and spouting off about it, or the people that don't read past the headline and think that this is like a decent.
I'm wondering, is that anybody recognizable though?
So Richard's going to be joining us here in a minute, but he's saying that Linder is laying it on thick, and we've heard that now from a couple different sources coming out of Lansing, and we're definitely going to talk more about that, and we're hoping that Representative Johnson, who Richard is on staff with will be joining us also. If not, then we'll work with all the great guests that we have, and many of us, of course, were there. So we'll be able to recount it and recount Representative Johnson's great contribution to that rally. And there's a picture with her and a young baby that I posted for this promotion. That was taken by Sunshine Daisy. Also took the picture of the Capitol that I used for this. And that is her Daisy's granddaughter, Anna, who's the youngest cannabis patient in the state, we think, at like just a few months old. And that's who Representative Johnson is holding in that picture. She's also the part of a lawsuit right now to be able to have her mother be the caregiver. The law states that the parent or guardian has to be the caregiver. The law also states that the caregiver has to be 21, and Sunshine Daisy is saying that she's 9 months old. And but the mother's not 21. She's an adult, but not 21. So there's a conflict there. And it should many of us think it should just be deferred to the mother, the parent, to continue on, not the other possibilities, which would be making somebody else a legal guardian to do it. Some other things that the state has suggested that is kind of extreme. When the answer is just let the parent do it, and the 21 thing becomes a minor scenario based on the bigger way to make this functional.
Why is first of all, I consider it all age discrimination, just like in our CCW law, we have age discrimination. My question is, why was 21 ever introduced in the first place? Why wasn't it 18 years old?
For polling suggested that if you made it like an adult thing like that, then you get more votes.
We no longer consider 18-year-olds adults, do we?
Yeah, it's certainly the United States military consiers 18-year-old adults, and every time someone says,
high school students.
Yeah,
that's the argument.
The whole concept that your brain doesn't fully mature until age 22, 23, 24, so we can't let people use cannabis, but we can train them to use weapons and kill other people.
Yeah, but I say, it's because they're high school students and they can influence, or they could provide. This is the argument, because I heard it every campaign I ran, and they could provide things to students who are not 18, and that's the reason. It's because of the high school thing. That's it.
Then we should ban 18-year-olds from high school.
Well, I'm not saying I agree. I'm just saying that's the argument. I definitely don't agree.
So
with
the only time that it was under 21 was the local Flint one, and that's 19. Which also, makes sense. That won by like 57% of the vote. So there was a lot of support for even being under 21.
Cannabis,
right, the soccer moms are protecting the high school kids. I mean, they feel they can vote for it then. So
Josey has joined us. She's going to co-host today and also be here in the celebration of Expungement Week, or in recognition or awareness of Expungement Week. I'm not sure. We celebrate it when the people actually get out. The fact that there's so many to have to work on is not cool. But how you doing, Josey?
Yay! Happy Expungement Week. I'm excited. We're doing a lot of really cool stuff here in Michigan in terms of criminal justice reform, especially where we were even 7 years ago. And the idea that people are getting their records expunged is one thing, but then completely clearing their records is another thing. So I'm really excited to talk about ways we can get our records expunged and how it's going.
And Sean Gallagher says hi to you. And of course, he's one of the lawyers that has really helped out with this program quite a bit to facilitate this. You need lawyers, a lot with this process. And the ones we are working with have been willing to do a lot of work for free and to really reduce the price for the normal cost of handling one of these cases too for us. So Sean is
a great lesson. There's a great lesson in paying attention. You just said it's Expungement Week. I thought it was just Spongement Week, so I went out and bought a big loofah. I guess I was wrong.
Oh, gross. We don't want to hear about your loofah, please.
Yeah, why do I think you didn't actually go buy a new loofah? You just broke another one out.
Yeah.
Well, when you break them, they're
That's
rough.
where you get the really thin thing. You add a little bit of water to it, and it turns into the thing to scrub all the dead skin cells off.
Expungement Week, yes. Exactly.
Wow.
Hey, Josey, where are events? Like, are people volunteering, or is one organization with lawyers, and how is it working?
the Great Lake Expungement Network is a collection of organizations, criminal defense attorneys, and cannabis companies dedicated to expunging records here in the state of Michigan. One of the places that we're working with is Clean Smoke in Najanava. They're having an event in Detroit for expungement on October 10th. And we're also doing live expungement screenings this Saturday at the Niles Cannabis Festival. And we do live expungement screenings through some vendor days with Redemption as well, but we aren't doing the typical expungement fair. And the reason being for two purposes. Number one, obviously, with coronavirus, but number two, it's so much easier to do things digitally than what it was a year ago or 2 years ago. Courts are accepting digital records. We're able to pull records and send them in without having to get people. A lot of our applications don't need to be notarized if they're just misdemeanor marijuana charges. I will say that Flourish did a phenomenal, unbelievable expungement event a couple months ago. We were not a part of that event, but it was a drive-through expungement event. They did pre-registration, and then they had notaries there. They had people doing a bus to take them to get fingerprinted. So the idea that these events can happen in the future are something we're looking forward to. We are planning a DUI expungement event with Mike Nichols in February when the DUI bills go into effect. So we're really excited about that as well.
And we're going to get into all this stuff even more. We're going to talk about it again. And you brought up the Niles event, which I brought up earlier. The portion of the parking fees are going to go to Glenn and help out the cost for these. It costs $500, $600, $700 a person, depending on
application, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, so because like the cannabis, the expungement bills were all good. We've said this many times on this, but the cannabis portion of it left a lot to be desired, and it does require a hearing. It requires the lawyer to oversee the application and all the proceedings and that kind of stuff. So it's not just automatic. Like use of possession should have been automatic, and like manufacturing and delivery should have been the ones that possibly, if they were felonies or something, maybe use a little bit more scrutiny. But the reality is all that activity that was made legal by the MRTMA should have just been set up to be automatic. But as Adam said earlier, the cannabis issue gets shit on whenever it's being considered in the mix of other things.
So I think that it's fair to say that people who use drugs in general or who have drugs on their records don't get the same shot that other people do. So here in Michigan, yes.
I was going to say that's exactly right. Sorry, and you're going to you brought up the proof, and we're about to see it with this DUI bill. Okay,
right.
This DUI expungement is first of all going to be much larger than any cannabis expungement.
Yeah,
not because there's more people, because there were many more people with cannabis. It's because it directly affects people greater, and the DUI thing is going to be huge. And I happen to be very much against drunk driving. I believe that's attempted murder on everybody you pass.
Totally. I agree.
I'm not sure that I agree with a DUI expungement bill.
Yeah, I have issues with it too.
The concept and why it's needed because of the damage done by these convictions. So I understand that.
Yeah, the way the system really could brutalize somebody for it. Maybe it needs
some kind of overhaul.
We're going to see expungement just totally change because of this DUI thing, which I believe will pull up what Josey and Glenn and groups like that have started. And that was originally to clean up some of these wronged cannabis crimes,
Right.
Hey, so we're gonna talk more about expungement later on. We've got Free the Weed himself.
Free the Weed.
Richard Clement joining us.
Free the Weed. Greetings.
He's a staffer with handling cannabis issues with Representative Johnson's. We're going to hopefully hear from Kirk here pretty soon as well. And we're going to talk about the rally, and we're going to get a little bit into the language. Are we expecting to hear or see from the representative today, Richard?
I let her know that that the link to the meeting is in her messenger page and stuff like that. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's a little
Can you hear
echoey,
me?
man. But yeah,
Huh?
it's a little echoey.
You can't hear me, so having little technical issues with my microphone. Echo?
Yeah, it's because you're sitting in the corner. You're getting that echo.
Okay, testing. Okay, can you hear me now?
You have the show on too loud and it's coming back through.
No.
Do you have headphones? You turn down the volume?
Well, I don't have headphones. I got some headphones here.
Yeah.
But it's fucking with me right now. But
sorry,
let's
man.
see.
You want to borrow mine?
And reach them through the window to them.
Huh?
Need a joint? Got one for you?
Yeah, Adam's gonna reach.
Listen.
Adam, yeah, you're gonna get some gifts. Hey, but
How's that? Can you hear me now?
See, there you go.
Yeah, man.
How's that?
Yeah.
So Manuel asked if the bills require a 3/4 supermajority vote to pass, and the answer is yes, they do. And also, that doesn't mean that we need to be complacent. That is difficult to do, but these guys are very serious. They're very well funded. They're very well aware of the processes around Lansing. They are hitting it hard. Richard works in the office of a representative in Lansing, and he knows that they've been coming in and pressing the issue. Isn't that right, Richard?
He agrees.
He does agree.
Hey, can I have to go soon. I wanted to share something with you guys before I have to go.
Please.
Okay.
Okay. So I was at Entheofest, on Sunday, and we didn't know how it was going to go. And I had a little booth there to give away a set of psychedelic and spirituality books. And we have all these, I'm drawing from here tomorrow with Julie live. And somebody's going to win all those, the one of the 4 signed books that William Leonard Picard wrote, Rose of Paracelsus.
Very cool.
So 4 people are going to win that, and one person's going to win a whole library, 6 books.
Cool.
Shelly, when is this drawing going to take place, and how can people watch it?
We're going to do it. I think we're going to do it tomorrow. I'm trying to get it to where Julie can be there too, but people will be notified on Entheofest social media, Michigan Psychedelic Society social media. So if you were at Entheofest and you came up and you filled out a ticket, we're going to publish who entered on the Reads and Weeds social media and Psychedelic Society social media and Entheofest social media and Decrim social media and all that. So you'll know in the next couple of days. So if you entered, thank you for coming and saying hi, and also check your email because we'll be trying to figure out how to get you books. That's all.
Okay. And we're going to get more on the Entheofest discussion later on in the show too. So that's a little preview right there. So appreciate it.
William Leonard Picard was
Wonderful
amazing.
thing.
And that dude, everybody was really cool. We're going to talk about that when the time comes.
Yeah.
But yes, that's what she says is very significant and much appreciated. So thank you very much, Shelly. And hopefully maybe we can hear Richard now. Richard, you want to try again? See if we can hear you?
Test 2, 3. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
No?
Yeah, we can.
You hear me now? Great.
Yeah.
Well, this is a brand new pair of headphones I got the other day, so thank you for letting me test it out. Like I said, I was up. The rep just called me. I know she's probably in session. But what's happening, Steve Linder's walking the floor up there. He's really hitting it hard. I want to show you what I got from Green Peak that was in my office the other day, okay? Each rep got a folder looking like this with some material within it, okay? As part of their campaign and marketing plan to ram this bill through on the okie doke. So the only way you're going to stop these guys is basically find where these reps live, find out the districts they live in, and have their constituents raise holy hell with them, okay? Then we have some other material for the 110, and just let caregivers, the people have spoken, and we don't want any changes. And they do respond to pressure. They're gonna come through the Senate too. Okay, they come with the okie doke. They come with an end around in the Senate. All the bills are tie barred. Okay, and so what that means, if you defeat one, you knock them all off. But they're gonna tie bar one with the Senate, so they may have 5301 in the House and maybe 1 or 2 bills in the Senate, and you still gotta knock them off. Okay. And if you say if you knock off 1 or 2 that's key, the tie bar thing. If you knock off 1, they all go down. Okay. So like I said, Rep. Johnson was very, very adamant about no changes. You might want to work with the Black Caucus or somebody. I'll work with them or something.
Yes, please do, and so should other groups. Yeah.
Also, Senator Bullock is part of the Michigan Legislative Cannabis Caucus that's supposed to meet this Friday at 4 o'clock at 4:20. And, this is what, 8, I don't know if you all have the list of all the senators, but it's at least 8 of them officially. Graham Phile is the only Republican that got in there, and he backed out due to moral reasons, which is bullshit. Okay, I mean, if you want to take his legislative aid, a couple pre-rolls or some of them, they go ahead. But they're coming. They're coming with the blitz. They're coming with the blitz. You got to play a little defense. Like I said, I have this 5201 up on the other page, and when I saw something in there about accelerants and things, they're just gonna go nuts. Okay,
it's worse. It's worse than we originally got the information. We got some headlines of what was going to happen. The more you read it, the more absurd it is.
Well,
it just shows how Steve Linder.
But it also shows how ill-informed they are, because some of this stuff doesn't even make sense.
Well, I have a theory about this. I think that they really do believe that at some point this is poised to be engaged in a negotiation. And when that's the case, you do throw the kitchen sink in there, and they can peel off a lot of this ridiculously bullshit stuff they have in there and still effectuate the stupid things that we're trying to fight against. So the point is, this is a non-starter. The MCMA doesn't get to dictate the program for which caregivers get to come back into the commercial system. That's got to be done through a process with all the proper people involved. Yeah. That's one thing. And the other part is, the caregivers are having rights taken away. As long as that sits, it doesn't even. I don't even need to read the rest of it. It's a non-starter at that point.
Yeah. Right. So when is the vote? Like, how long do people have, and which reps are we contacting?
Richard, are you hearing anything about that House committee bringing these bills up for a hearing soon?
Well, not yet. But what you want to do is in the Committee of Regulatory Reform, as we speak, and right on the House schedule. Let me get to the House schedule. They do have regular meetings. What we want to do is that bill comes to that committee for a hearing. If it's on the docket, we need to show up. And matter of fact, we need to get on them before that bill even gets to the docket.
Right.
Our strategy now is say, hey, withdraw the bill. Kill the bill. Kill the bill before you even bring it up to a vote.
Yeah, who do we directly need to encourage people to call?
Richard, did you create a list of the you created a list of the members of that committee. Where did you post that? I forgot.
I think I saw that on Facebook, right?
Was that a Facebook post?
I want to go.
So the
I'm going to the committee page on our Michigan House.
The Regulatory Reform Committee is the one that was assigned to.
Committees.
And what we're hearing is that they're going to be having a hearing on it much sooner than we would want, or that we thought was the case. And that might even be early next month. And the head of that committee is Roger Hawk, Hauck. He's a Republican in the 99th district. He's the head of that. And then there's a whole list of people who are committee members. Now there is a clerk. One letter to the clerk would also have that information disseminated amidst the rest of the participants on the committee. There's also going to be a hearing day in which people can show up and give public input. We're definitely going to be on top of that and be talking about that here too. And this is definitely, I think, what Adam was talking about earlier would be helpful if representatives of many advocacy groups and organizations were there and individuals who are in opposition. Go ahead, Richard.
Okay, I wanted to add on to that there. As far as the committee goes, like I say, the housemi.gov website has all the committees listed. I did post, but Roger Hawk, another one I believe is on, there's a guy named Matt Hall. And he's, what I want to say, he's one of the guys, a January 6th insurrectionist supporter. Okay.
Republican from the 63rd district, and he is on the committee.
Right. Another person on that committee is Alex Garza, Richard Streeland, Angela Whitwer. Tanisha Yancey is the minority vice chair. She's a good one to work with. Kevin Hertel, Pat Outman, John DeMoose.
And Streeland was one of the co-sponsors. So you mentioned his name a second ago. He's one of the co-sponsors of 5301. He's the Democrat to make it bipartisan.
Is that Garza the Garza that introduced the Jaden's Law?
Yes, and he very likely is going to be a good vote for us, but there's a majority here that looks like it's going to be difficult to defeat. I would say we can try to stop it, but it's likely going to go to the floor at this point. We really got to look to stop the three-quarter the vote. What was that, Shelley?
What was the name? Streeland?
Yes, he's a Democrat that supports this. And
Streeland?
I think it's Steen.
It's Steenland, and he's a Democrat from the 22nd district, which is like Roseville area. And not being in support of this, yet he is. He's been hearing about it from a lot of people I know, and so has Jim Lilly.
He co-signed the bill.
Understand. We talk about needing a three-quarter supermajority vote. That's true when it goes to the floor of the House and when it goes to the floor of the Senate. But in the House committee or in the Senate committee, it only needs a 50% vote in order to get out of committee. So the bar for it to get out of committee and be considered by the House is low enough. And with the Republican dominance in that committee, it's almost assured that it will. The only opportunity we have to speak as people, as the humans, as the citizens who are being affected by this law, is in committee. We don't get to speak when it comes under consideration for the House floor or for the Senate floor.
Well, so hopefully our representatives who agree with us will stand up and say some stuff, but we have no public input at that point.
And
one of the issues that we have with
when the committee hearing comes, everybody that supports us needs to show up. And even if you're one of those people that doesn't get a chance to speak because time runs out, the fact that you were there and they saw your face makes all the difference.
And you can also submit stuff in writing too. So
submit, right?
Yes, you can.
To the clerk and on the spot.
Okay. Right. The best way to send if you're going to object to the bill, you want to send an email to this lady here. I'm going to post Molly Wingrove. I'm going to post the email address in the chat. Basically, you're going to put the bill number. You're going to say opposed. And you're going to write in the subject line, you're going to put the bill number. You're going to say opposed. And then in the body of the message, tell them why you oppose it. And, that's that. They keep a record of those emails. Those are public record. Okay. So that's another way. If we can get our community to just basically say House bill, I'm just trying to post this damn thing. To the MI, to that. You see that M. Wingrove lady? Okay, you send an email to her and carbon copy your representative or any rep, carbon copy a rep or two. And
so Molly Wingrove, when he says the Wingrove lady, that's Molly Wingrove, and she is the committee clerk.
Yeah, and he's got it posted mwingrove@house.mi.gov. Exactly right. Yep.
Right. So I want to just cut in here. Lucille Turner is believing that Danielle Ross maybe said something that was anti-caregiver, and I just want to let her know that was her statement. Danielle's statement was not anti-caregiver. She was very much in support of caregivers, so that was just a miscommunication.
Okay.
Okay.
Just settling some stuff on the chat a little bit. That's all. Oh, I see. And what Richard is talking about is on the chat within us here. He's giving out the information to make sure that we have all this. I didn't notice it before.
Yeah.
So M. Wingrove at house.mi.gov, and that is the committee clerk. And one letter to her will get that message disseminated to all the members of the committee.
And that subject line should be HB 5103/opposed. Correct, Richard?
5301. Right.
5301.
5301, all of them.
Thank you.
Matter of fact, you could put all of them, 530, 5301, 5302. You oppose, okay?
Oppose all of
And
them.
matter of fact, when you all of them, and if you do Molly Wingrove, make sure you carbon copy another state rep, like maybe your own state rep.
Your own state rep. They care about hearing from their constituents.
And make it very
That's
clear
right.
that you've done so. Don't blind copy them. Actually carbon copy them so that Molly can see that you've
Right.
actually copied your rep.
Right.
So to guarantee that they'll have to pay attention to your letter and not just magically make it disappear, as sometimes my comment cards have in the past.
And I want to also say senator too. Throw in a state senator, cut him off in advance. If you ever see the light of this bill coming from the House, we oppose it. Okay. And you might get a fancy letter back from them saying, "Oh, we thank you for your input," and all that other stuff. And we'll be watching out for it. But make sure you put your contact information in it too, because you have nothing to hide.
Yep.
You have nothing to hide. You basically pissed off and say, "Hey, don't let this out that committee. Don't you even put this in that committee. Put it in their ear." I thought Jewel Jones was on that committee too, but from this list, he's not on. Or they just took him off the committee.
They took him off.
He's got some legal issues,
Right.
as many people know. And
So Green Peak was the one with the folder, and the members of the committee, it's the Michigan Regulatory Reform Committee. Is that those people in the chat?
Right.
Okay.
In the House of Representatives, the Regulatory Reform Committee, yes.
Okay.
Right. Those are. And right. Not only that, but we as a marijuana community, caregiver community, I don't know how much this little folder costs to make or whatever. Even if it took a letter, if you hit all 110 of those reps, you let them know that we're not bullshitting, because we got people like Chippewa Valley that's got an email distribution list, and they're coming up with this total anti-marijuana McGruff the dog bullshit about how marijuana is so bad. I mean, they're just out the fucking lunch. I'm just gonna cut it out to you. They're worse than Chippewa Valley. They are just like let's go back. Huh?
Did they find bodies out there or something? I mean, do we find a dead person from weed? Chippewa Valley.
You might overdose.
Where do these people come from with this crazy shit?
No, they get funded.
Yeah.
They're a little organization outside of Grand Rapids or whatever, and they got a mailing list of all the state reps, and every month they pump this bullshit out with the kids and the high school kids. All that affects me. Well, shit, you're high school. You shouldn't be smoking anyway. Fuck you.
Right.
Okay, I'm a taxpayer.
Right.
Not
Bad
fuck you, you
parenting.
little high school
Valley
kid.
High School?
Unless they need it. A lot of
Yeah.
high school kids aren't patients. They could use it. That'd be the exception, though,
No,
right?
but they want to tout the children. They always do. Mike Rogers, when he was
Right.
state rep in outside Ann Arbor, whatever that city, wherever he was from, he talked about Hash Bash one year in the newspaper, and he said he was at the local high school, and all the kids were talking about wanting to go out to Hash Bash that weekend, and he was outraged. And the reporter called me up and asked about it. And I'm like, yeah, they got bad parenting in that community that they don't know where their children are on a Saturday afternoon. I mean, come on. It's not about the weed. It's about the bad.
Exactly.
I don't get it. I just, if there was some damage being done, I would have to own up to it as the weed activist that I am. But I don't see it. And I don't see the reefer madness. I wish it was true, some of it. I really do. It'd be really neat if it was.
A high school?
There's a Chippewa Valley adult.
No, Chippewa Valley.
I just didn't see anything when I looked it up.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think there's a school district, Chippewa Valley.
Yeah,
No, it's a lobby. It's a lobby
But
group.
this is
They're
different.
a group that Chippewa Valley. Because these are a bunch of guys, the people. That's an organization, and they're all anti-pot, and they're just basically not the old stuff that 2007.
All right, sounds like an anti-pot, well-funded
They're
group,
totally-
probably funded by the MCMA indirectly or something.
Probably,
They
they
preempted
definitely
the
found
NCMA.
government.
They've been around for a long time, making bad news.
yeah.
They're a parents organization. They believe that
And I'll
they're
tell you what,
letting their children
when
off
I-
high schools.
So this is the area where like MAD and all
Yeah.
those organizations are really
Right.
driven from. Okay, yeah. So they have a history of this. I remember Big Daddy's bus was getting pulled over around that area just because they knew that there was an association.
Bad parenting, I'm telling you.
Yeah, so it is bad parenting, and basically pimping the kids to promote their propaganda. And what I'm going to do here, I was going to get the committee list up here on the legislature page. Regulatory, but they spam us with their meetings. They spam us pretty hard.
But let me
They
just talk
spam
for a
us
second.
really.
Let me get on something real quick, Richard. You talked about if they spend all this money for these 110 folders to give to all of the House reps, that's a lot of bread. Well, it was also a lot of money to spend on that Anderson Economic Group study that they put out earlier this year. And then they released 2 polls, which one of the polls had at least 11 or 12 different questions. That's a huge amount of money. They spent money on a rolling billboard to park in front of the September 15th rally. They've done nothing but spend money to try and promote this. And here's the thing. If you have truth and justice and right on your side, you don't need a public relations campaign to sell the concept, right?
Right.
Well,
That's right.
I mean, when I saw that folder that Richard held up, I thought, it'd be great if we sent out a folder that had nothing in it. Like, here's the changes we want.
Yes.
Not a
I
damn.
love that.
Well,
Nothing.
no, yes, this folder's empty because
Right.
that's how much work you should be doing on this issue.
That's
None.
exactly right.
Focus on other shit.
How much
We're in a
you think this
pandemic, for Christ's
costs?
sake.
So they print those.
How much
you have to understand that Green Peak has printed that up by the thousands because they're using them for all kinds
Right.
of things.
Right.
The fact that they have a well-packaged product that they're trying to sell to these people makes it somewhat of an easier sell. But this, I think, is really all about money and about donations and about we need your support on this, and we're trying to make.
Is it on there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one I just sent.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all of them there. So they did
So,
take.
especially if they're in your district, get on them. Otherwise, do
Right.
what we're discussing here and let the committee chair and the committee clerk know, and be prepared to
Right.
perhaps offer testimony.
And I tell you what, those hyperlinks on those reps' names, they go right to their webpage. They're right to their page, and you can see a map of their districts. And hey, if, for instance, you find out somebody's in Roseville or somebody's over there in Ypsilanti, or find out where they live. Not 10-1, you got some patients over there that live in their district.
Hey, speaking of that, Richard, one of these
10
fuckers is from Ypsilanti area, Ypsilanti Township area.
Yeah.
Ronnie Peterson, he's the state rep of that area.
Right. Well, put it like this. Remember Bill Schuette, it's time for recall down at the city hall.
Yeah.
To let them know, straighten up.
Fuck Bill Schuette.
For those of you who don't
Bill
know our
Schuette,
history,
that's
Richard
That's right.
very famously made multiple efforts to recall fucked up Attorney General Bill Schuette, who hated cannabis and hated every single one of us, and sent a special prosecutor in Chesterfield Township just to get my fucking ass. So we supported a big anti-Bill Schuette rally on the very same Capitol steps that we just had that big September 15th rally on.
Hey, so let's
Buck
actually
Joe
talk
Studio.
about the rally for a minute. We have not that much time. I mean, this discussion's been, appropriate.
Hang on a second,
But
Jamie. I'm sorry to interrupt. Richard, you're holding up something from Green Peak, right? Show us what it says. What are the points?
Oh, they're teaching the cannabis cultivation process. So they start from 2 weeks. Okay, the clone, the vegetative state, the flowering. This is weed 101. Okay, fuck Billy Bung, right? And total time to market is 4 months. Okay, that's one of the little handouts in the folder. The next one, here's their policy priorities. Okay. Support a regulated market. I don't know if you read it all there. This is their propaganda statement, okay, for all intents and purposes. So what they're setting up to do is to collaborate and to they're collaborating that strategy to get the 5301 through, okay? A lot of it's old information, but it's a big propaganda packet. And like they say, they're coming with the blitz. We're on defense. And we see the play coming, okay? They trying to run us in run. Okay, they're on offense, we're on defense, and they're trying to run an end run, okay? They're trying to run a razzle dazzle. So it's time for us to sack them in the backfield, okay? Bust them at the line of scrimmage and set them for a loss. Because we the people have the ball. Remember that. So this is only one of many. They're not bullshitting. They're gonna come with all of these and our job as constituents is to either come in writing, is to have, little groups have scheduled meetings with them. If you target a few of these guys and get on their calendar, call their office, get on their schedule, and have a meeting with them, catch them at one of the coffees or something, this bill would never pass. You let them, and then redistricting is coming up too. Remember, because
they're desperate to try to get this through now because it probably definitely won't happen after the next elections.
Right.
Well, right. I mean, then in the next election, a lot of them won't be in the same district. Matter of fact, they're talking about taking Rep. Johnson and putting him in the same district as Ayosh.
So we'll have some casualties as far as people who would be like-minded on our issue and who are better probably leaders in general. There'll be a few of them, but more of the bad stuff will get hopefully broken up a little bit more, and we'll have just a better overall composition of lawmakers. But you're right, Richard. There's some stuff there that.
Right, they're coming with the blitz, man. So, that, and then make sure, like I said, we get make sure you get with the Legislative Cannabis Caucus. Okay, they need something to do, and this is something they could do.
They need something to do.
I don't know if you got the members. I'll okay, they do.
Well, I would point out
that I'm the member of the Cannabis Caucus too.
You are, yep, 14th district.
Right.
I would point out that to back up what Richard said, most of the organizations, Michigan Normal, Michigan ASA, we're going to do lobby type days around these issues. So if you're looking for some organization to give you a little guidance, there'll be groups going to the Capitol to lobby on this stuff. The problem is if they do this quickly and they get this through committee quickly, we're not going to have a lot of time on this.
Hey, so we're going to have some room or maybe some room to get back to discussing the rally, maybe this show or into next, because we're going to hit it during this time a little bit, but obviously to discuss what's going on with Lansing and this new information of the threat of the bills being pushed through a lot faster than we were anticipating. I mean, that's all very important stuff to discuss. But we also got a discussion on the inaugural Entheofest to get to, and our guests to help guide that. And of course, myself and Rick were there. I think everybody here has an interest in it. Richard, if you want to hang out and be part of this discussion and possibly get back on some of this stuff later on, you're more than welcome to. But we're going to kind of talk about the Entheofest for a minute. and for a little while. Joining us, of course, Jim Salame, pretending like he's not on the show and just coming on later on to be like a guest.
Happy to be here. What it's like.
Thanks for having me.
Late, making a big entrance, sure.
And Mike Williams, Myc O Phile, who's also co-director of the Decriminalized Nature and on the national board of Students for Sensible Drug Policy, I believe. He's also joining us. Can you hear us all right? You're muted,
Jim,
man.
how you doing?
He's out.
Can you hear us?
Oh, we got Jim. And he'll come back. Mike will come back on in a minute. Jim, what's happening,
Jump on
man?
his computer.
Jim,
It was
Jim,
incredible, guys.
Yeah.
It was
No
an incredible
shit,
day.
man.
I want to thank you guys for being there. It was just so much fun. It was better than we anticipated. The crowd behaved. I think one of the biggest things we can gain from this is just the intense attention the people had in the crowd for the speakers and the content that was being delivered, and the amount of mobilization that Mike will speak on when he gets in here for the movement that happened from this effort. So that, and the University of Michigan allowing us to use their space, and then the hard efforts of Decrim Nature with Julie Barron and the group there, and SAPS, Students Association for Psychedelic Studies. That is Moss Herberholtz, that is president of that organization at the University of Michigan. And together, the collaboration brought us to this synergistic moment where, a year before we had the resolution passed.
And by resolution, he means
had
City of Ann Arbor, by vote of council, made entheogenic plants lowest level enforcement priority, essentially decrim, just so people know what you mean.
Which was the intent of the Entheofest. And then a month ago or so, Ann Arbor City Council unanimously voted September to be Entheo Plant and Fungi Awareness Month. And 2 weeks ago, essentially, Senator Jeff Rowan introduced Senate Bill 631, and this is all happening at the same time. And yesterday was Global Mushroom Day, so there's so many things that just kind of intertwined there, like a river going into a pond or something. It was just great. I hope Mike gets back on to just talk more about the tables and the action that they saw at the activist booths that were all over. I can say that when William Leonard Picard spoke, he was one of the first, major speakers just before Barking Dog came on, Daryl Brown, and somebody had mentioned, my friend Mark said, you could hear a mushroom drop when William Leonard Picard spoke.
Yeah,
good.
Yeah, you had to listen to him, but man, he was a driving force that entire time with that low, subtle, just kind of approach,
20 years in prison. What a compelling story. Given credit for manufacturing 90% of the nation's LSD at one point, Jim?
I like the way you say that, given credit. He kept consciousness alive during a time when obviously somebody had to step up and supply 90% of the LSD to those who were using it.
He made himself a better man, and you can just see how together he is as a person when he speaks. He comes from the purity of his heart, and it's really, he's an amazing person to talk to because of what he's been through.
Mike probably thinks we're talking about him, of course, but
either Leonard or Barking Dog, from what I caught there.
Yeah,
we're talking about Leonard there. Yeah, I wanted to talk about him first because I was saying just before you got on, Mark Passerini said you could hear, it was so quiet you could hear a mushroom drop in the crowd.
People wanted to hear him, man. The stuff was intense.
Yeah, awesome.
So, but Mike, go ahead. You saw so much action down at the tables.
That was a unique thing too. We don't normally get to put tables up like that when we do festivals in Ann Arbor on the Diag. So having tents and booths where people could visit and actually sign up, that were well received. The people were really responding to them. So that was an amazing thing we should add to future events.
So Mike, did I get it right? You are co-director of Decrim Nature in the state. You are one of the creators of Entheofest. There's some background noise.
Yeah, that's probably my fan, which probably won't shut off.
And and that's just going to be how it is. and also on the board of Students for Sensible Drug Policy.
Yeah, that's correct. I would say I'm not a creator of Entheofest. That was all Jim, Julie, and Moss.
Okay, right on. So let's get into it, though, man. You were there. You were a big part of it. Let's hear your thoughts on the inaugural event.
Yeah, well, my understanding was we were maybe expecting 400 to maybe 600 people. MLive projected quite a bit more. I do think that was over the course of the day. But as you said, the tables were an interesting ad. I've been to several hash bashes where we don't get to have tables usually on the quad. And we had a line at the Decrim Nature table, the SSDP table, and the Dance Safe table, 10 to 20 people long the entire event and after.
Right on.
There was a survey being conducted at one of those tables. It was a unique experience too. University level public survey about entheogenic substance use, and people were willing to wait in line just to have their voice heard in that particular survey once they were told about it. What a great story that is, huh?
Yeah, no, it's really exciting to see the research that's been being done at U of M since we passed 1 year ago today. So, they're still doing that research. We've shared the link across all our socials. I believe, Rick, you've shared it. But if you want to participate in that study, it is ongoing. If you've had a psychedelic or entheogenic experience, we'd love to hear from you. And it'll go towards real research coming out of good old Ann Arbor.
Man, and some of these speakers, of course, at the event shared their experiences and how it dramatically changed their lives, and that's the kind of stuff that they're getting feedback on.
Well, yeah, I mean, for me myself, Leonard Picard, well, knowing it or not, definitely changed my own life. I'm sure I caught the tail end of some of his mass production that allegedly happened. I really do love that about him. He's really, smart with his words, just like that. But I started using LSD in the late 90s, and that was a game changer for me. It was maybe not till mushrooms that I had the life-altering experiences that helped me recover from an opioid addiction. But at the same time, LSD really helped me find a higher purpose and a search for a spiritual self.
Right on.
We spent a lot of time on Leonard Picard, and he's a wonderful speaker, but we should spend some time talking about Daryl Brown barking dog, if you don't mind. Jim, what do you think? That was just a fantastic presentation.
Man, it was.
It was.
The whole thing was so awesome, but yeah.
Captivating, and Mike spoke right between those two guys, so give it up to Mike for having to do that. I put him in quite a spot. But Mike obviously had incredible things to say because while we were working on this, as the groups of DNMI and SAPS, Mike was working on the policy and the thing that was introduced with Senator Jeff Irwin, and also working with SSDP, and so he's definitely got his hands full. Barking Dog was someone that came to us through Leah, who's leading the group in Mid-Michigan's decrim movement, and he's from the UP in St. Ignace. And it was amazing when he opened up about the colonial, time of in 250 years that, our government has been here, and how St. Ignace just had their 350th anniversary. And I thought that was really compelling and really kind of brought everyone down to where he was coming from and his people are coming from. And having that representation towards the end was amazing to wrap up the day, I think, because of his indigenous presence and this is leadership and a legitimacy. I just really loved having that aspect of it. And we intend to have him back again. Right now, his artwork, there's going to be a release on this, is at Ohm of Medicine. There's about 10 pieces along with the big mural there. And we're working on trying to get him somewhere in Ann Arbor to do some workshops where he can teach his pointillism, atavistic, surrealistic painting that he does. He's actually on a board I've mentioned on the show before. He serves a 3-year term that Governor Whitmer appoints to the Cultural and Arts Affairs Board of Michigan. So he's definitely legitimate, and his artwork is astounding. So
yeah, he is. We're some of us were fortunate enough to attend a pre-event to the Entheofest on Saturday evening, where several of his works were on display, and I was captivated. Some of the primitive imagery that's evoked from there, mixed with surrealism. What a combination. Plus Native American dot style. You really have to experience it in order to understand. There's just so much going on I imagine that when you're on entheogenic substances, those paintings actually speak to you. So
we do.
Fantastic.
And he says that, right? Doesn't he kind of say like he might gear some of his imagery toward knowing how the experiences might be?
Exactly. He has a process, and he's happy to share that with people. But he apparently has a piece that he's coming out with called Ayahuasca Visions that he did while under the influence of that medicine down in Peru. And but my understanding is that that's not how he paints all his other stuff. He's pretty much, as is. He's not in a ceremony of any kind. So, which makes it even more profound that I think he's in both worlds at all times, perhaps.
Very cool. And the martial arts demonstration, that was kind of like, I'm not sure how planned it was, but that was a great addition.
Sick. Yeah.
Even the stuff they were saying about it, like how they use those substances, in that world. Go ahead, Mike.
So the Tamarian Institute, that's who provided that martial arts demonstration. We've been working with them since before Decrim Nature Michigan was even formed. Baba Kalindi, his wife Ayana, spoke earlier on in the ceremonies. He had founded the Tamarian Institute probably a little over a decade ago, maybe longer. I'm not entirely sure of their history, but underneath with his studies, now I'm totally gonna blank. I had their name right at the front of my head. Wesley Snipes, I believe it was, had studied with them, and talking about the foundation of African martial arts and its relationship to the mushroom. I think they'd be amazing guests to have on our own show, the Entheo Show, at some point, to talk about those roots with the mushroom, because it's very interesting, and I'm very glad that they were able to make it, because we didn't know they were going to be able to.
Yeah, that was cool. One of the things he said that I found interesting was that he said there's a lot of discussion about how these things are used for healing. So we don't use them for healing. We don't believe that we're sick. We use it for exploration. We get trapped in another world with a warrior. And we battle them. And we learn from that and stuff like that. That was pretty intense.
Yeah. So I've always appreciated that about Kalindi as well. While he was still with us, he spoke frequently about using mushrooms to awaken the warrior within, rather than in a healing sense. And the Doctor Strange reference, no surprise there if you've ever listened to Kalindi, comes directly from him. But he always talked about, Terrence McKenna was on the right idea with the heroic dose, but 7 grams just ain't enough. And so Kalindi was a big advocate of what some people call a superhero dose, which always interested me, because first time I heard him talk about that, this is the first time I heard of anybody that had taken large amounts that I'm familiar with and had the same positive experiences I had. And then come to find out his highest dose more than doubled my 32 grams.
Wow. You only took 32 grams at once?
That's my highest to date. And it's intense. It's intense, and it's not for the faint of heart. It's not for the lost in the world and beginner by any stretch of the imagination.
So that it kind of makes me assume anyway that cannabis has got a saturation point. You can get to the point where no matter how much more you're smoking or whatever, it's not going to add anything. So apparently that would not be the case.
So I think LSD is an easier analogy to look to here because they're both tryptamines, psilocybin, psilocin, and LSD. They're all tryptamines, but commonly within the LSD community, you hear about people doing, a whole vial or eating a sheet, eating 10 strips, or within the sales community, to acquire pure crystalline LSD, there's like a rite of passage that used to exist. It's less utilized these days, to my understanding, but a thumbprint where one would lick their thumb, stick it in a gram of pure crystalline LSD, and then lick it. And that's estimated to be about 2,500 hits. But what happens is, yes, you do reach kind of this saturation point. But the thing is, different people's bodies react differently. So that 1 dose or that 5 doses that may guarantee that ego loss for one user may not be accomplished until 10 or 20 doses for another person. And this is just like, because LSD and psilocybin are in fact as toxic to the body as cannabis, i.e. not, you can take these kind of doses, but what ends up happening is it then extends the period on which it goes. So, in one of my experiences with about 150 hits of LSD, that was a solid 2.5, almost 3-day experience during the Well concerts for the Dead's 50th anniversary. I only made it to night 1. The next few nights, that child within was awoken, and apparently because I connected so well with the children, I was left as the babysitter. Maybe sounds like bad parenting until you talk to like Ayana, who talks about how mushrooms have been integral in their community in terms of raising their children, because it does awaken the inner child and allows you to connect and see the world through that child's eyes, but also awakens the child to the cosmic greatness that there is.
So is that 150 at once and then you let it go, or are you taking them in increments over a period of time to get it going?
That 150 is an estimate. I may or may not have been in a place where a large amount was being put into gel tabs, and there may have been a small spill on my skin. But quickly slurped up, maybe. At least that's how the story goes.
There you go.
I want to talk about the other side of this and people that are microdosing. And when we see drug policy reform, what we see is at the foreline, at the front of it, consistently is people with disabilities and people who, obviously the most obvious would be something like medical marijuana. We're here on a marijuana show, right? And I think when we were the last DPA conference we were at, we were talking. It was crazy to see the evolution of drug policy reform, where we're nobody's attending those weed seminars. There's like not cool anymore. We're all going to see like psychedelics, and that's what we're talking about now. And we have a lot of people that are microdosing for pain in replacement of regular opioids and things like that. And so are you seeing a community that does that? Or because I feel like when I show up to these places, I'm like, are you guys microdosing LSD for pain? And they're like,
yeah. And
we're not.
LSD, and on top of that question, does that work better than other stuff for pain?
I don't see pain relief from mushrooms, right? For me personally, for Josey, I'm not like everybody.
bringing this up, Josey, because this is a really important topic. A lot of people started the microdose movement is largely based in this idea of productivity, or general better mental health, and nobody's talking about it for physical ailments, and they need to be. Because so I currently work at Disability Advocates of Kent County, one of the state centers for independent living. And so a couple of the consumers that I interact with have told me stories of one larger psychedelic mushroom experience, not a microdose, from a paraplegic or a quadriplegic standpoint. All of a sudden they're feeling electricity running through these parts of their body. And in the case of one paraplegic person I talked about, he said he could touch his leg and he could feel it during the experience. And that's a profound thing that is healing in and of its own self. But then speaking to that same person following, he said he had read about microdosing for pain and for specifically for nerve pain. And so he continues to microdose, I believe he said 3 to 5 times a week. But what he considers a microdose is what most of the microdosing community would actually consider more like that museum level dose. So microdose traditionally means subperceptual, as in you can't feel any effects from it. But after repeated use over time, you start to reap the benefits. Now, if it's subperceptual, obviously there's no pain relief. But a museum dose, as a lot of people like to call it, is a low dose but still perceptual mushroom experience. So instead of being like 0.15 to 0.3 grams, it's more like 1.25 grams.
Yeah, I like feeling it a little bit, not being too committed, but hitting it a little bit.
Absolutely. Something you could be in public on, but maybe that first time is going to have that psychedelic twinge, maybe a little anxiety. But if it becomes a regimented routine, that psychedelic piece kind of fades, but you're still getting the physical benefit. And I think that's where research is going to start to come out, because there isn't a lot of research to back what you're talking about, Josey.
Right, it's true. And so in my experience, if you're microdosing correctly, you don't feel anything, right? I went 8 blocks. I took my kid trick-or-treating 8 blocks last year. Like, I don't know if I hide it super well, but I don't typically walk a block and a half, right? So I have this consistently wanting to not be a barrier. And I think this works into the same thing where you're talking about parenting and using psychedelics in this way. Consistently not wanting to be a barrier to experiences that my daughter wants to do, right? I went to Bond Falls. We hiked like a 1/4 mile. I was like, oh, okay. And so microdosing has been something that has been at least in the disability justice community and all these weird drug policy reform groups that we're talking about, people, you're right, don't talk about it. And when we're looking at the research that's being done and these studies that are coming out, they don't look at people who are in physical pain. I don't think it's something that is explainable. So I don't know. That's why I'm looking.
I think they're looking at that now, Josey. I think they're starting to do more studies on pain relief from these psychedelics and mushrooms, and they're starting to come out. You got like the London Imperial College and Harvard and Yale now have departments, NYC. There's a lot of studies coming out on not just the PTSD side of it. And what I wanted to add to the conversation here is, it's hard to quantify what your intention can do for the performance of what you're eating when it comes to, plant medicines, and having that just that little intention of what you want it to do for you and putting it into that medicine and then consuming it and put it in your body, that really goes a long way. Again, not something you can really quantify, but it definitely helps alleviate some anxiety because it gives you, kind of a mission, so to speak, of what you want this to do for you.
Well, I mean, part of how pain is received, sure, we have certain receptors that are fired up at the pain center, but part of it is how we associate pain to experiences and our past. with the neurogenesis and the neuroplasticity that is allowed through microdosing or even high dosing any of these substances, you can actually create new neural pathways and make new associations in that space. So I think there's several different paths forward to be discussing psychedelics for pain treatment.
Can you see the question up there?
I do. So this is actually something we had explored as Decrim Nature Michigan.
Would you read it and then answer?
Yeah, it says, is there any promise with lysergamides and legalization, such as LSD, ALD 52, etc.? So first off, Senate Bill, I want to say 529. Is that right, Jim? In California.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, it's in California.
529 in California. DN is taking a hands-off approach with it. There's a lot of big money at play. They're not very respecting the nature model, but LSD, ketamine, MDMA are part of that. When we moved forward with 631 here in the state, and we're having our discussions with Senator Irwin's office and the Legislative Services Bureau, we actually intended to include LSD in it. So most lysergamides are actually not controlled under the Michigan Controlled Substances Act. So there would have been very little to do in regards to beyond LSD. LSD, however, is specifically mentioned in the exact same clause as psilocybin mushrooms, mescaline-containing cacti, and so forth. So we figure the Senate likes it easy. They don't want a bunch of convoluted subclauses and subclauses and subclauses. This is something they don't understand, so we'd make it simple for them. Just exempt the whole paragraph. But no, Legislative Services Bureau insisted on separating it and not including LSD in it. So at this time, we are not. However, I will say low-key, there is an all-drugs decrim movement very alive in Michigan. There's a couple organizations around the country, SSDP, and DN is also working on one with model resolutions and ordinances to start an all-drug decrim model at the local level.
So would that be akin to something that Oregon did statewide?
Yes and no. So Oregon 110's a mess. It imposes these hideous limits. 12.4 grams of mushrooms. I can't grow a single PF cake of mushrooms, the most basic way of doing it, and get less than 12.4 grams. That's just, their limits make no sense and are completely arbitrary. They got extra raised penalties for children now. Figure that one out. Like, okay, great. Like, don't legalize it for the kids, but increase their penalties. That's bonkers to me. So I don't like the Oregon model, but yes, essentially it is an all drugs decrim that would look at what a public health approach to heroin, cocaine, methamphetamines looks like, and would fully decriminalize all substances, because nobody should be going to jail for the choices they make with their own body.
And it's so much more than that, right? Like, so we've seen it happen. Let me start with this. Sons and Daughters United was created. It has always been all drugs should be legal, right? So that should always be the thing. This idea that people should just do drugs in your neighborhoods and your parks and all of that is something that nobody wants, right? People should be able to do drugs in a way that is safe. No one should lose their father, uncle, aunt, sister, what have you, just to unsafe or unregulated drug use. What we are now calling safe consumption lounges, places where people can use drugs safely. Yeah, it's me, Adam, actually. I know if you're wondering who it is, it's me.
Mine are in the other room, so.
So the idea that people are measured, their worth, their human rights are measured based on drug use is not used in every other country, right? We see this in other places, and people dying at high overdose rates is just unnecessary. My dad spent 20 years of my 27 years in jail because he really likes cocaine. And he really likes selling it to other people in different states, right? And so this idea that you do the crime, you do the time, and then you continue to pay for that time until the day that you die. And I think that's something that me and Adam were going to talk about earlier with the DUI bill, which is there is no real chance of redemption for drug users. Here in the state of Michigan, if you get caught with, let's say a first-time meth user gets caught, 20 years maximum sentence. Nobody in the right mind would get 20 years for a first-time methamphetamine sentence. But when I go to expunge your record, if you have more than one of the same felony, that's punishable by more than 10 years, which is every single drug crime except for marijuana now. That's it. I can't expunge it twice. So this idea that drug users are the only class of people that aren't tied to certain ills of the Constitution, things like possession of a firearm. And let's talk about that, Adam. I think that's something that Adam can talk about, which is, hey, I am an American. I also have the right to the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, but also this idea that things like search and seizure, humiliation tactics, all of this stuff that's illegal, but somehow is legal for drug users. That is something that our drug laws here in Michigan, although it's not prosecuted in a way that we see in everyday life, at least for a lot of my friends who are probably white and privileged here in West Michigan, doesn't mean that that's not what is happening or what could be happening. And so this idea that drugs should be legal in any, or the law should be lowered in any way, I think is awesome.
I want to point out something you brought up, but I also want to hear about this DUI thing you and Adam are going to talk about. I'm currently in sobriety court for my third DUI, and as we know, that means I'm never getting anything expunged because of that.
You're lucky you're not in prison, 3 DUIs.
Hey, I already did 8 months, and I'm looking at another 3 years of probation once I finish sobriety court. Man, but I want to jump over to something Josey was saying, though, because a lot of people, maybe not so many people listening to Jazz Cabbage, but a lot of people, you say decriminal drugs, they say, whoa, heroin, cocaine, meth, and, you brought up this idea of supervised consumption facilities, and I want to elaborate on that because this is a model that really has a lot of potential. Not only does it provide a safe place to consume, it provides on-site drug checking, so you can make sure your drugs actually are the drugs you think you're consuming if you bought them in the black market instead of dealing with fentanyl cuts. But that's not all that comes through there. You're also getting access to counseling and a social worker, introduction back into jobs and, the workplace and society. You're being welcomed with love instead of extra community. That's what people who are suffering from various forms of problematic drug use need in their life. Imprisonment does not help addiction, exactly like Josh has just said here in the chat. And no, it doesn't. As somebody with problematic substance use history, as somebody who has been incarcerated a couple times now, no, it's made me pissed off at the system. It's pushed me further to the edge of society with no options, so I just go get high and try and deal with it instead of giving me the resources and tools and education I need to move forward. And that's been a very uphill battle for me.
So I think the first thing that I learned in drug policy reform is drug use is normal, right? This idea that it's something we need to overcome or that our family has to overcome is strange to me because the drug users I know are productive. They're attorneys, they're doctors, they're people that in everyday life.
The podcast hosts.
Correct. Yeah, right. They are people, they're taxpayers. They're people that make up our society, and they're also people that make up our laws. And so the idea that people are going to prison and they're going for a long time for something that is promoted and accepted in media and in our American culture is crazy. I mean, I have all these, you know, you get a kid who gets kicked out of school for smoking pot or having pot or admitting to maybe liking pot one time in their whole life, or maybe has a Cheech and Chong shirt on, something like that. Will get a child fully expelled from school. But the idea, you know, that people who use drugs are a part of a part of our society is something I think changed the communication for me, right? The idea. And it's hard when you see people who struggle with addiction. And I think that that's something that people talk about when I'm like, yep, I mean it too. Yeah, please legalize heroin as well, you know? And I think that they see people struggle with something that is terrible and horrific, and that they fucking deserve help with, and that should be accessible, and that is accessible in other areas. So this idea, this war on drugs that started way back with Reagan hasn't produced anything but a good number of overdoses and a variety of potentials which have been overgrown or at least past their due dates.
Well, and when we're talking about the disability community again, you know, when people think about addiction, they're really quick to like think of everybody pushed to the outside of society. And you're right, they are lawyers, they are doctors, they are. So I like to put disability awareness and drug use awareness kind of in the same sphere, because it doesn't matter whether you're black, white, rich, poor, old, young. This pervades every single community. But when we're talking about the disability community, because the rest of society sees people as so disposable, it's so easy to just push more pills on them. And we're creating a bigger drug problem. We're creating more drug dependency. We're creating more overdoses. And then we cut them off because, oh no, they've started to misuse it. And so what do? They go find a fucking heroin dealer, of course. And like,
the real gateway drug.
I literally use that to get my doctor to write the scripts I want. I tell him, if you do not write me the script I want for my pain pills, I'll just call a guy and he'll deliver it to your parking lot. So help me to not get arrested.
I was 13 years old, so the whole thing is I was in 7th grade. I lost my ability to walk. It was about a 2-week process, right? Like, I told my legs to move, they wouldn't move, right? My mom has the same disease. She told a lot of people that I was going to have it. All the doctors were like, nah, you don't know what you're talking about. This isn't how it works. It's not genetic, X, Y, and Z. I had started, after I had lost my mobility in 7th grade, and when we were dealing with this idea that I was never going to walk again, which losing mobility in middle school is one thing. Being in middle school sucks, right? Being in middle school sucks, able-bodied or not. So disability, when I walked into my first Cabbage Club meeting in 2010, I was the first minor patient here in Michigan. Stop. Are you serious? I saw people that looked like me, right? People that were in wheelchairs and then walkers and people that I identified. I saw John Targowski, who was a goddamn attorney, in a wheelchair. Somebody who I saw that was working that had a job. And I was like, damn, I think I have to do something with weed, right? But at that time, when I was 12 years old and I lost my mobility, they were giving me fentanyl suckers to sit in an MRI. I was fucked up, like, all the time. Like, I was probably maybe 12. I don't know. I clearly don't remember because I was on fentanyl all the time, right? But this idea that we don't know how to treat you, let's just pop you full of drugs that haven't been tested on your age group isn't appropriate. And now we're seeing the repercussions of it, right? I can't find a doctor to get me a wheelchair at all.
Josey, we should talk about that because that's something I help with every day. I don't work in our OT department, But when I just recently busted my heel, it took me all of 12 hours to get myself a knee cart. We have hundreds of wheelchairs.
Right.
And I don't know where you're located, but I'm connected with every center for independent living around the state, and I can help you with that.
So I am, let's talk about, in terms of disability justice and the way it works into drug policy reform and the way that we're accessible. So the idea that before we discovered, hey, opioids are addictive, because that's something that was promoted to us, right? And this is a miracle cure. It's not addictive. There's no side effects. You're going to fucking love it. It comes to find out it is addictive, and it's easier, it's cheaper, or it's more expensive for people to get, and people end up getting addicted to much stronger things.
I think.
Okay, so this is really intense and informative and very cool, and obviously connected, and in the spirit of Entheofest, educational and all that kind of stuff. But we're using. We got a lot of time. We don't have a lot of time left. There's a few things we want to do. I want to make sure that people can get some thoughts in about Entheofest, just to satisfy this a little bit.
Hey, congratulations on this. What a cool event. I'm so glad that you guys did this in Ann Arbor of all places.
Thanks.
Well, that's very much part of the history too. That was kind of built upon a place that were kind of pioneers in cannabis over the years to on this issue.
Yeah, and going back to safety and things, during the event there wasn't one incident nor one arrest the entire day from anything crazy going on.
No police showed up until at the end of the event, and just walked through.
They rode through on their bikes a couple times.
Oh, did they? Okay.
There was one cruiser that sat way back in the deep corner of the festival by one of the buildings, very far from the event, overseeing. They never had to get out of their cruiser.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, it was great. I want to say, just in the mix here, that was an awesome event. I'm really happy that I was there, let alone being able to have a part in it. And it was. I just wonder if some of the people and it's different in a lot of ways, but it felt like it was raw, just came together. There's nothing really established before it, and yet it was really cool. And I just really enjoyed that experience. I've gotten used to generally how Hash Bash goes, and stuff, and I love Hash Bash, but it was unique in that, that raw factor.
Well, and so the event obviously is a celebration of both, the 1 year anniversary of our passage of the decrim package in Ann Arbor, but also last month's passage of September as Entheogenic Plant and Fungi Awareness Month. And I think next year, a little bit more similar to Pride Month, you're going to start to see businesses, with as successful as this was, starting to host other events throughout the month and hanging signs in their window in support. But also, this was a call to action, as Hash Bash traditionally has been. It was a free speech political event. And we're talking about Senate Bill 631. I know, or at least I hope earlier you've had a chance to talk about the cannabis bill that's currently problematic as all hell. And I need to educate myself more. I know where I stand, but I need to educate myself a little bit more on it. But Senate Bill 631 was just introduced, as Jim said, September 2nd by Senator Irwin and Senator Hollier. But so what this does is it creates the exemption underneath the clause that says that these substances are illegal, and says if you are using them for personal use or growing them at home, if you are sharing them with your friends or participating in small community ceremony or sharing them within friend groups, gifting, that all these things are exempted from the law and will not be prosecuted by the state. But we've also included another piece, because we are talking, about the health benefits and the spiritual benefits and the positive benefits that can be experienced by an individual beyond just medicinal and spiritual use. And if you talk to Barking Dog or Leonard, they'll tell you this is all medicinal. And I don't disagree with that. But depending on how we want to define things. But what that other clause does is it allows for financial gain by spiritual guides, space holders, people offering integration services, and other people providing services around these substances. So while you still can't sell these substances, you can actually start therapists and counselors that are, working with people who have consumed these substances and helping with integration can come a little bit more out of the dark with it. It does, we got to be careful when we say therapy and counseling, because, then we really get into medical law. And
well, generally, it's good if somebody's going to enter into this world and try to have some kind of focus with it, to have people who know what they're talking about and have had the experiences and could help somebody through a process is a good idea.
Definitely needed. Yeah. Especially since it's new and people are curious about it. Having a guide is almost paramount for a good experience, to take away your fear, to learn, certain tricks that can help you and save you from having a bad experience.
Yeah, certainly. And, some of our biggest naysayers within the community are like, well, the people, this is already a non-issue. And if you look at the numbers, it is a non-issue. Not many people, very, very, very few, a handful annually are actually getting prosecuted for these substances in our state. However, there are plethoras more that would and could benefit from these substances, but won't take that step as long as they remain illegal, as long as these services are not available. And as soon as these services can be offered, all of a sudden more and more people can start ending their suffering, whether it be traumatic, mental health, physical disabilities, lack of purpose or spiritual direction, or just need to make better life choices, like getting into a better diet, growing their own food, quitting wasting food, starting to do yoga, meditating. All these things are benefits that can be experienced by these substances that, if we do move forward with Senate Bill 631, the people of Michigan will finally get the freedom to choose.
One of my favorite quotes of the day was from Barking Dog Daryl Brown, when he was talking about how everyone wants to take the substances and blast off and go into outer space and experience, all these, the places. But his point was, you want to go to inner space. You want to go inside. You want to go in and heal yourself and get to know yourself, because that's what these plants can provide you, is that intimate relationship that you can have with them to understand yourself.
And Ryan says, I thought this was a cannabis show. And as we know, there's a direct relationship between these movements, as was discussed a little bit at the Entheofest.
It's an entheogen. Cannabis is an entheogen.
And for purposes of moving this issue forward, the discussion and the political processes are the same. And every time there's some kind of a victory or moving forward in an area with cannabis, it helps this out ultimately.
It's not a surprise that Ann Arbor, the hotbed of cannabis law reform for a long, long time, and for cannabis liberation, is the hotbed for entheogenic liberation now in the state of Michigan. Yeah. So they do follow parallel paths.
Yeah, and it makes sense that
people that watch our show probably are interested in both subjects.
Yeah, and it makes sense that the group of activists able to know how to execute those discussions and bring the correct information for the council to consider would also happen out of those areas too.
Even our MC, Antoinette Sarfo, also known as Q, is out there really helping that whole day go by so smoothly with her professional delivery and her just personality. It was amazing. So,
and council.
The high tea event that she does also celebrates to a certain degree some of the mushroom issues that we're looking at in entheogenic substances. So you can certainly look that up and participate in that if you're so inclined. They are awesome events.
And the fact that Ann Bannister, who was part of the council when it was made lowest level enforcement priority, she left but continued to support and work with the organization, and also gave a presentation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anne has been amazing through this process. She's given and given and given of her time and energy to the movement since leaving the council. I know time's running short, so I do want to, while we have the viewers, make the call to action. If you haven't already, check out our page, decrimnaturemi.org. There's instructions on how to contact Senator Roger Victory, Senator Kurt Vanderwall, Senator Stephanie Chang, Senator Tom Barrett, Senator Ruth Johnson, Senator Jim Runestad, and Senator Jeff Irwin, as well as, of course, as your own district senators. It is quintessential that these seven and your own, these seven being the members of the Senate Judiciary and Public Safety Committee, hear from you, so we can get this bill to a vote within the committee, get it to the floor and move it over to the House, and then do the same things over there. If you need any help, we've got a pre-formatted letter. We have a pre-formatted phone script. We also have one-click actions, thanks to Students for Sensible Drug Policy, as simple as enter your information and click send, and it automatically sends the letter. We're working on another one, so it'll go through your phone and you can click the button and it makes the first call. Click end, it makes the next call. Click end, it makes the next call, and keeps the phone script up for you. So we're trying to make this as simple as possible, but at the same time, nothing is more powerful, especially to your own senator. And I think Stephanie Chang really is responsive to personal stories. You have a personal story, the form letter is great, but add a paragraph or two of your own experiences. Edit that to make it your own. It's just a guide. It's not the end all be all. It just has some good information there, and we need people to reach out.
Keep it to a page or under generally, so it has a chance of being read. All right, so we do only have a little bit of time left. Really appreciate you guys coming on, reflecting on this. I know that we'll have more discussions on Entheofest. That was something that was significant, and there's a lot of stuff that went on and a lot more that we left on the table, but a lot of great information in this discussion. Josey, I kind of wanted to return to the rally a little bit too. So Josey attended the rally. How about you start off with your thoughts on the rally just for a minute or two, and then get into the expungement stuff for another minute or two.
Yeah, I love, it's been about 10 years since the last rally where you guys threw those big fuck you planes across the Capitol. And
they weren't exactly fuck you. They were knocks on Bill Schuette, though, like, why do you hate patience and stuff like that.
I mean, what did I say?
It was fun.
And it was packed. There was like people out there. It was also like when we first legalized marijuana in 2000, and well, we didn't. That's what we thought though. Like with medical marijuana, we thought we could just smoke it anywhere, and it was like legal and all of this stuff. But then all of our friends were getting arrested for like the silliest things and things we couldn't understand. And at this point, at the rally, it was Renee Wolf's last rally, by the way. And at this point, it was a moment for me. It was my senior year in high school, and I was like, oh shit, like, this is fucked up. So here I am. I'm 27 years old now that I'm old as shit. And here I am at this rally, and they're the same guys, right? There's Uncle Pete, who I could count endlessly in all the generosity that I have seen him give to people that
I know. Oil to cancer patients. And information.
And of course, Gersh Avery taught my mom when we met with Gersh Avery, I was probably 14 years old. He taught my mom how to make oil, and otherwise, they make you be your child's caregiver here. So if you don't know how to grow weed, it sucks for me, right? And so this idea that we had seen the same people and they have all experienced hardship as well. So these are caregivers who have been prosecuted. For the most part, a lot of the guys that I had seen there, I hadn't seen for a while. And I was like offering to do their expungements, like, hey, how long has it been? I think my favorite thing about the rally was Rep Johnson. What the fuck? She's so good.
I hope she was going to make it on today. Of course, Richard was here. And he was, yeah, it was.
You know, all my reps out here are dusty. It's hard out here, man. But I'm hoping that with some redistricting, I'm going to get some good. They're dusty.
That makes sense.
Josey's on the west side of the state, and that's a notoriously conservative area for our national viewers.
Hey, so we're going to spin it around, including getting back to Myc and a little bit, just so he can get out like contact information and website stuff and where information can be had and stuff. But get into a little bit about Glenn and Expungement Week just for a couple of minutes, and then we're going to have to start winding it down.
Yeah, so happy Expungement Week. Expungement Week is pretty much an advertising campaign to get people to go out and expunge their records. Things just changed here in Michigan. It's easier than ever to expunge misdemeanor marijuana charges. I'm only talking usage, paraphernalia, sale of paraphernalia, or possession, but it doesn't take very much, and in some cases it won't take a court hearing. Apply online at sonsanddaughtersunited.org/expungement, or visit Great Lakes Expungement Network.org. If you want anything, like we just got some flyers and things printed, so if you want anything to do with getting some of those into your store, give us a call. Otherwise, I'm so thankful to have you guys here. I hope you guys celebrate Expungement Week by sharing Glenn and showing people. And also just a little bit of a reminder for all my Scorpios that you can make Sons and Daughters United your Facebook fundraiser. We do make 30% of our income, or our revenue, I guess, from people's Facebook fundraisers, so feel free to do that. Otherwise, thank you guys so much. I'm so excited. What a thrill to be on this show with you guys.
Offered a lot as usual. Appreciate it. Hey, so Richard, everybody loved the representative, the staff that you are on. Of course, you did a good job too at the rally. Is there anything you want to just leave us with here today?
No, hey, the fight has just begun. Like I said, it's on. And I did put some information out there about the pot haters and the pot, pro-pot, anti-pot, and an article my brother wrote about the DEA and opioids. So let's keep bringing the heat, people. We on defense, don't let him off the line of scrimmage. It's bullshit, okay? I'm out.
Right on. Hey, so Myc, yeah, let people know what's going on with your various efforts and organizations and how they can help or make contact or what have you. And any other final thoughts you might want to add in?
I think I got all the thoughts out. Again, if you want to know how to take action, if you want to donate, if you want to volunteer for Decrim Nature Michigan, decrimnaturemi.org. If you have your own podcast or radio show and you want to have us on, dnmimedia@gmail.com. Also, as I mentioned, Dance Safe Michigan had a huge turnout at their tables. We went through every one of our materials, which we brought a ton. So if you're interested in checking out Dance Safe, helping at music venues and festivals around the state, providing harm reduction services, michigan@dancesafe.org.
Right on. Thanks, Myc. Hey, so Jim, I want to just say thank you. I know that you are actually properly credited with being a creator of Entheofest, and I had a great time. And it's a great situation there, and there's a lot of shit going on. And to like have that in the midst and how awesome it was
Yeah,
it was
thanks,
very,
man. It was
very awesome.
very collaborative, and the idea came less than a year ago, which is amazing that it actually happened. It was just such a quick bam. So, and this, like we mentioned, all the things that are happening with Senator Irwin and Hollier putting that bill in, and things that happened a year ago and a month ago. It's just all coming together. So it's beautiful.
Yeah, that's awesome. Anything else you want to throw in there before we?
No. Eventually, we're going to see the Entheo show again soon. But Mike wants to say something.
Mike?
Yeah, I can't believe I forgot it. But September 28th, Grand Rapids City Council has their own decrimination resolution that is being voted on. It's not as extensive as Ann Arbor's. It's a little bit more symbolic. I'd love to talk about that more, but it essentially says that the city will support any decriminalization at the local, state, or federal level, which seems a little silly. If they're just supporting decrim at the local, why'd they take the local decrim out of the resolution? But we're going to let them hear that when they vote yes on September 28th. Also, East Lansing and Lansing, not too far behind, Madison Heights and Hazel Park, not too far behind. And Detroit has a decrim package, Proposal E, on the November 2 ballot. So vote yes on E because it's easy.
Right on. Hey, Adam, anything you want to add before we shut it down?
No, I just was happy I couldn't make it to the Entheofest, but I was happy to see the turnout. And tabling on the diag, as I was in years past before the university denied it, was very successful. So I was happy to see people able to do that again. Hopefully we can keep doing stuff like that. But it was a great turnout. And the rally at the Capitol, to be honest with you, I don't know that if we'd have had 1,000 more people there, it would have been any better of a turnout. I think the right people showed up.
It was good.
And that's more important than anything.
Good press response, good people there.
Right. Awesome.
Good information, stuff like that. I want to add before I turn it over to Rick to totally wrap it up that at the Entheofest, amidst all the great stuff that happened, I really enjoyed Chuck Ream's speech, and I really enjoyed Rick's speech. He got into some drama, and I think it turned out pretty good. I know that I was watching the musicians and some people up in front who were just really getting into it. So, anyway, Rick, why don't you wrap it up for us if you don't mind?
In the beginning, there was not in the world but beasts and spirits. That's how my speech began. So that kind of wraps people in, either drives them away or gets them hooked, right? So fact is, if you look in Michigan's recent history, we've had a string of really great events. We had a good bridge walk, September 15th rally, Entheofest. In between there, we had a great cloud cultivation event. We continue to see strong events in Detroit and on the west side. Some of the cannabis chef events that may not be 100% regulated market style are drawing people in. There's a lot of enthusiasm in Michigan centered around consumer-based events, not necessarily regulated market events, but consumer-based events. And here's what Jamie pointed out that got really glossed over in this conversation. At the September 15th Save the Caregiver rally, there were a ton of regulated market business owners or employees or folks associated with the regulated market. Most of the people don't really look at it as regulated and unregulated. Most of it just look at it as choices. And as long as we approach both worlds with the same sort of mindset, we can coexist wonderfully. But when the MCMA forces a mindset of falsehoods upon the industry, trying to portray caregiver cannabis as poisoned, or unregulated market cannabis, illicit cannabis, as somehow lesser in quality than what's being delivered from the regulated market, that's when they start to lose everybody, and the argument gets lost too. Because we've had decades of unregulated market cannabis without any history of ill effect whatsoever. So anytime you start to mess with proven history, you're automatically going to lose the argument. And these guys can't stop trying to rewrite history in a way that favors themselves. If we stick to the facts, if we stick to the history, and if we stick to our own track record, we win the argument. Now, we just have to have people in the legislature whose ears are open enough to hear the argument. And hopefully we will. Thank you, Jamie. It was a great show. You set up a good one, buddy.
Yep, another good one. appreciate everybody's participation and everybody who is not here at the moment. And we'll be back again next week. Jazz Cabbage Cafe. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
See you guys.